Hey Sugars, it's Nikki here, and thank you so much for joining me for card number 3 using the supplies from the SSS Stamp October 2017 card kit. Now I have already cut and scored my card base and we are ready to roll. Just a FYI, we'll be using the same sort of supplies from card 2 in card 3, so if you haven't checked that video out, please feel free to do so. The link will be in the description box below. So let's start off with our homemade stencil that we created earlier, and I'll be using some Tombow removable adhesive to adhere it to the card base. Or in my situation, I'm going to try to, because I can't figure out why this adhesive isn't going down on the paper. And ultimately, it was just because I ran out of adhesive. So thankfully, I did have a spare cartridge on hand, so just quickly changed that out. Now, as a side note, while I do really enjoy the Tombow adhesive, I think it's high quality, I'm not a fan of the cartridge style kind of adhesive. I think it kind of wastes a lot of plastics, and I'm not a huge fan of that. I don't think it's very eco-friendly. However, because I don't use removable adhesive that much or that often, I don't mind kind of once in a while. Now that I have that all adhered, we're going to start getting our stamps ready. Now I have a bunch of various size blocks in order for me to kind of put all the stamps in individual blocks. If you don't have that, that's fine. All you're going to do is just kind of clean the stamps as you go and just change it out as you need it. It'll just take a little bit longer, but that's not a problem. So I do want to let you know we'll be using a blush color, a gray, and a navy, and I decided to kind of go light to dark. And the main reason for this is just in case I don't thoroughly clean my stamps that well, it'll kind of be okay because the light color will kind of just blend in with the dark color. Generally speaking, I kind of use that little car chamois that you can find in the automotive department to clean my stamps, and generally speaking that works really well. However, I do know that the gray and the navy inks that I'm using today are from Kelly Perky, and they're quite staining type inks, meaning that it will change the color of your clear stamps. It won't damage it in any way, it'll just stain it. So as a good way to kind of remove all or as much of the ink as you possibly can from the surface of your stamp, you'll want to use a really good cleaner. And one that I have found recently that I just love, and I got it in a haul video, and if you want to check that out, that will be in the description box below as well, is the Hero Arts Ultra Clean Cleaner. Now this stuff I've only had for a couple of days and I'm already in love. It does a really good job of getting that extra residual ink off that otherwise my little car chamois kind of material wouldn't do. And the other reason why it's really good is the fact that it's meant for rubber stamps and clear stamps. So you kind of get the best of both worlds right there. Now I wanted to show you right now that I have the blush and the gray inks in their, or rather stamps, and they're going horizontally. And I wanted to kind of change up the feel using the darker color and go vertically. However, I didn't want anything to go on the back of my paper, or the back of my cardstock. So I chose a scratch piece of paper to help protect me from getting ink in places where I didn't want it. So make sure you do that, because the last thing you want to do is overstamp and have, your brush stroke go on the back. Unless that's the look you're going for, then by all means, go for it. Now, as another thing, I also try to work in threes. So you see here I have 3 blush, I have 3 gray, and 3 navy. And basically the reason for that is you want to do everything in odd numbers because your brain is visually attracted to that. If you do things in even numbers, your brain tries to make a pattern of what it's seeing and it kind of distracts away from your overall effect. Now I'm trying to figure out whether I want to stamp another navy brushstroke or not, and ultimately I do decide to do another brushstroke, and that's because I don't think right now you can tell that that's fully a heart shape. It just needed a little bit more definition at the top to really showcase that. So that's something you want to be aware of, that if you're doing a technique like this, you want to make sure you get enough inks around or enough color around the outside perimeter of the image so our brain can easily define what shape we're seeing. So that's why I'm adding another blue horizontal stripe to the card front, and once I peel off the mask you'll see how much better it looks. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Now that we've removed our stencil, we kind of want to just clean up our area. The last thing we want to do right now is get any ink where we don't want it, whether that's from our fingers or the stamp pad. So all I did was just take my fingers, and if there was any removable adhesive left, I kind of just rubbed it away. So next, what we want to do is decide what sentiment we'll be placing on our card. And what's beautiful about this is using the stamp set, you can kind of just move it around and kind of see what you like. And ultimately, I decided to use the thank you sentiment. Now, I'll be using the gray ink to ink up my sentiment, but I do want to give you a quick tip. When you have small images or sentiments like the thank you in this set, and you have an acrylic block, sometimes the best thing you can do is actually place that sentiment higher up on the block and use a secondary image to kind of balance it out. That way you're less likely to rock your sentiment or image and create some smudges. As you notice, I have grid lines in the craft mat behind me, and I also use acrylic blocks that have grid lines, and that really helps me kind of line everything up. It's not necessary if you need a ruler or something like that, or if you are just a rebel and want to just stamp with confidence, and by all means go for it. But I do like the lines on the acrylic blocks. Now I felt that this card just needed a little bit something more. And since we're trying to stick with what's in the card kit, I decided to reach for the Emboss It pen by Ranger that comes in the card kit. And all I'm going to do is basically make some squiggly lines, or I shouldn't say squiggly, more like wavy lines, all across the front of the card. And I did 2 of them, that way the lines can kind of cross and make it a little bit more interesting. And I'll be using the ultra fine steel navy embossed powder that came in the kit as well. So before you do any embossing, you always want to make sure you use a embossing buddy or something to kind of help reduce the amount of stray powder and static electricity that can happen with using embossing powder. However, I have to say, I don't know if it was just my environment or what, but the embossing powder seemed to stick everywhere. So if that happens to you, it's fine. All you have to do is take a dry paintbrush and kind of swipe off the embossing powder that you don't want, or you can tap and flick, or you can just blow over it, and all of those methods could get rid of most of your stray embossing powder. Now once that's done, we're going to work on the inside of the card, and essentially I wanted to keep it relatively simple, so I'll be using the same technique that we just did. So you use your embossing powder, take your Emboss It pen, make some squiggly lines all on the outside, pour the embossing powder over, and then heat set it. And I like this technique because it's simple and doesn't require a lot of extra materials. And once that gets heat set, we are all set with our card. So thank you so much for joining me, and if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And don't forget, you can follow me on social media as well. And until next time, bye!